the third critical choice that I made, we've already been talking about, but I want to get deliberate, is around building trust. So for me, when I made the choice, I was really choosing to build trust in myself because I had none. And this was a long time ago, but I did not trust myself, nor did I trust anyone around me except my sister. But so I had to first start with building trust in myself. And then that led to inspiring the trust of others. Now, for me, I learned that trust is in the small things. And because I was really deliberate about making good, small choices every day, it built up my trust in myself. You brought up trust in the beginning around enduring success, energy and vitality, and trust. And that almost like it takes two hands to clap when you think about your journey. Will you dive in a little bit more and give us more of your perspective on building trust in yourself and or inspiring the trust of others?
Yeah, definitely. And, you mentioned at the beginning that you have this framework, and they're not as sequential. They're laid out,
Right.
but they're not as sequential as we might think. And,
Right.
for me, I'm picturing this framework in my head as almost a Venn diagram, right? And so I actually like to go through this in kind of two ways. The first is we talked about, in order to achieve those other kind of like levels of love, love for your partner, and then love for your coworkers, and then love for everybody else that's kind of out there. You need to be able to love yourself first. And I think that is one of the foundational elements of building trust. And so when we need to build trust in ourselves, and this is something that I've struggled with for a very, very long time, consistently in the past being told, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you should consider,
Right.
maybe you're just a C student. Those thoughts just ruminated in my head for years and years and years, and brought me to a point of every single action that I did, every single interaction that I had this voice. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you're not good enough to do this. And that is a great way to not build trust in yourself. And it's not until we, kind of take control of what that little voice in our head says, that we can actually permanently change our lives for the better. And so self-talk is one thing that I'm a huge advocate about. And if you try self-talk at home, it is the silliest thing that you're ever going to do, because it sounds crazy. It really, really does. And so I started with just tiny little things in my day. And one thing I really like, there's this guy, his name's Lanny Bassham. If anybody's heard of him, he's an Olympic gold medalist, and now he's a world-class Olympic coach. And he talks all about how you build your own self-esteem over time and build trust in yourself. And, one thing that he likes to say is, when you do something good in your day, when you have a win, and sometimes that's just getting out of bed on time, right? You should celebrate that like you just scored the winning touchdown at the Super Bowl, right? He likes to say, that's like me. Build this reservoir of confidence in yourself. And when you first start, it sounds so silly. It feels so silly. You're like, what am I doing? Like, this is something that, people don't do. And over time, my mom would always say, if you tell yourself something enough, you start to believe it. For me, that works negatively very early in my life. When people told me, maybe you're not cut out for this, I believed it over time, right? So why wouldn't it work in the opposite direction? If I'm consistently celebrating even my smallest of wins, saying things like, that's like me, or when I do something positive in my day, giving myself a little bit of a pat on the back and really getting that, Super Bowl winning-esque feeling in my head, it really starts to build your own confidence and self-esteem. And, my wife will laugh at me because if I have a really good workout, or when I finish my workout, or I do like a really good set, she'll hear a woo in the basement. And she'll be like, oh, did you have a good workout? And it feels silly. It truly does. It works. And so some of my favorite ones that I like to say, especially when I catch myself ruminating, I think that's a huge component of this, is when you catch yourself ruminating, saying stop, and then having a mantra that you can rely on to replace those negative thoughts in your head. And one that's worked really well for me, especially when I'm having times where I'm feeling maybe a little bit inadequate, or like I wasn't prepared to be in a situation, is I love myself. That is one of my absolute favorite mantras that replays in my head again and again and again. And there's a million of them out there. There's a great book. It's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. It's by Chad Hamsler. It's a wonderful book. It's filled with lots and lots of examples of things you can say in your head to build positive self-esteem. So that's really one thing that I've focused on, quite a bit. And then I think when we talk about having or inspiring trust in others, or having others inspire trust, it really,
yes, right. Or exactly what you just said, or how does someone else inspire your trust? Yes.
Exactly. And I think that really comes down to a couple of components. The first is, I love How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And, this one also feels a little silly to me, but he says, hey, what is, one person that pretty much everybody loves? And the answer is a dog, right? Why do we like dogs so much? Well, as soon as you walk through the door, there's never been anybody in your entire life that's happier to see you, and they can't hide, right? They get this big grin on their face. They're super excited, bouncing all around. Their tail is a telltale sign going a million miles a minute. But we don't do that as human beings, right? We don't bring that sort of energy to our relationship, even when we genuinely are excited to see people.
We hold back.
We do.
Even when we feel it, it's like, oh, no, I can't express it. They'll feel like that's funny, or maybe that's too much.
And that behavior is often ostracized. But at the end of the day, when we go back to talking about, like, I'm willing to be burned as many times as it takes to get to wherever it is that I'm trying to fulfill my mission, that's part of it. The right people respond well to that. And to be completely honest, even if you don't get a good reaction, you probably left that person with a micro moment of positivity resonance in their day, right?
Oh my God. Love it, Matt. I have this picture. You know what? It's not here. It's downstairs. A picture of a dog that's looking. I use this for some of my workshops around active listening.
Yeah.
And this cute dog is like looking up at you with the big brown eyes. And I use it and I say, be the dog.
Yeah.
Meaning we talk to our dogs because they are such great listeners. I'm going to change it now. And I'm not going to change it, but I'm going to use it now.
Absolutely.
With this about be the dog, give your love.
Yes.
Like, that is, which builds trust. It inspires trust. There's nothing that can build trust more than creating an environment of intimacy, professional intimacy. And, like just showing up in a way that you are not holding back. Be the dog.
Absolutely. And, you just said two words that I think are kind of the second piece of having others inspire trust in you. And it's being present in two ways. One, physically. We tend to trust people that we're frequented by more often than we don't, when we don't see people. So that's one, being there physically. But the second piece of showing up is truly showing up. So, when I come home after a long day of work, and it's time for me to kind of shut down, not think about work anymore. I put my phone in my kitchen drawer and I close that. And that's the end of that thing. I'm done. Now I'm going to focus on my wife, my friends, any other work or extra kind of curricular activities that I do afterwards. Being present in that moment, and as you were just talking about in your active listening, that's kind of like the second component of showing up. So being there physically is step one, right? And then being there mentally is step two. And so, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on what does it mean to show up? What are the things that I do? What's my eye contact look like? What's my body language look like? How am I actually listening so that somebody actually feels heard? And it's not always about me solving their problems. It's about just having that conversation that kind of inspires trust. So I really think that's the second thing. Then the third thing is, if you do absolutely nothing else, is doing what you say you will do. This is kind of a two-pronged thing where this will inspire confidence in yourself for you building that self-trust, but also having others trust you as well. And so when we talked about earlier, like, hey, what are the things that, you shouldn't do that drain your energy or derail you? The quickest way to not build trust with somebody is to not do the things that you say you do. And I think often, people's lives are so busy. We make commitments that maybe we weren't totally ready to keep. And we think, oh, you know what? If I don't say anything and I don't do it, that person forgot. They didn't. They did not forget. They remembered it. They knew you didn't do it and you didn't communicate anything about it. And later on in your life, that's going to bury you, especially at your job and in your relationship. So the flip side of that is doing what you say you're going to do. And that's when we talk about celebrating small wins, right? So as soon as I do something that I said I was going to do, go. Like, you got this. Great job. Celebrating, Super Bowl style, things like that. And then same thing when we do things for others that we say that we're going to do. And it's totally okay to not keep commitments. Things change. Things come up. You have different circumstances, but not saying anything to that person or renegotiating that commitment is going to be detrimental. So I really think, being excited when you see people bringing that energy, people are attracted to energy, is kind of step number one. Showing up physically, and then kind of, sub-bullet there is showing up as a person and listening is step number two. And then keeping your commitments, doing what you say you're going to do is a really good recipe to build some pretty foundational trust.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Choose and Become interview series. To check out more episodes, go to www.trishkendall.com/podcast, or go to any of your favorite podcast channels, including YouTube, under Trish Kendall Speaks, and you'll find this interview and more. Choose and become.